In the heart of the old city stood St. Margaret's Hospital, a sprawling complex of buildings whose history was as long and twisted as its labyrinthine corridors. Over the years, the hospital had been rebuilt and expanded numerous times, creating a patchwork of different architectural styles. But there was one part of the hospital that few knew about and even fewer spoke of: the forgotten ward. The story begins with Dr. Emily Harris, a young and ambitious physician who joined St. Margaret's staff. Emily was assigned to general medicine, but she was fascinated by the hospital's history, particularly the rumors of a sealed-off ward somewhere in the oldest part of the building. One night, while working late, Emily stumbled upon a set of old, dust-covered files in the archives. They contained references to Ward X, a section of the hospital that had been closed off in the early 1900s after a mysterious outbreak of a psychotic illness among its patients and staff. Intrigued, Emily began to investigate. Her search led her to a forgotten wing of the hospital, hidden behind a locked door in the basement. Using an old key she found in the archives, Emily opened the door and stepped into the past. The ward was a perfectly preserved snapshot of early 20th century medicine, with rows of empty beds, old surgical tools, and faded medical charts. As Emily explored, she began to feel an oppressive sense of dread. The air was thick with the echoes of suffering, and the walls seemed to whisper with the voices of the long dead. She found a journal belonging to Dr. Jonathan Crane, the ward's chief physician, detailing his experiments with radical treatments for mental illness. The more Emily read, the more she realized that something deeply sinister had happened in Ward X. Dr. Crane, driven by a dangerous mix of ambition and madness, had subjected his patients to horrific procedures, believing he could cure madness by confronting the mind with its deepest fears. But Crane's experiments had gone terribly wrong. His patients, driven to the brink of insanity, had turned on him and each other in a night of unspeakable violence. The ward was sealed off, the incident covered up, and slowly forgotten. As Emily delved deeper into the mystery, strange occurrences began to happen. She heard eerie noises, saw fleeting shadows, and felt as if she was being watched. Her colleagues began to question her obsession with the ward, but she couldn't let it go. One night, Emily found the entrance to a hidden basement under the ward. It was there that she discovered the true horror of what had occurred. The basement was a makeshift asylum, a dungeon where the most tormented patients had been kept. The walls were covered in frantic scratch marks and desperate messages. In the center of this hellish place, Emily found the remains of Dr. Crane chained to a wall, his final, insane writings scrawled around him. It was clear that his patients, in their madness, had exacted a brutal revenge. As Emily tried to leave, she found herself lost in the twisting corridors, each turn leading her back to the basement. The oppressive darkness seemed to close in on her, and she could hear the faint echoes of screams and maniacal laughter. In her panic, Emily realized that the horror of Ward X was not just a relic of the past. The madness that had infected the ward was a living, breathing presence, a malevolent force that had been waiting for a new victim. Emily never made it out of the ward. Her colleagues found the door locked the next day, with no sign of her inside. The hospital sealed the ward off once again, the mystery of Emily's disappearance and the horrors of Ward X buried in the depths of St. Margaret's forgotten history. To this day, staff and patients whisper of strange occurrences in the old part of the hospital. Some say that on quiet nights, You can hear the faint sound of someone wandering the halls, desperately searching for a way out. And in the darkest corners of the hospital, it is said that Ward X waits, its horrors lurking just beneath the surface, ready to claim the next curious soul who dares to uncover its secrets. Now the second story. St. Elmo's Hospital, nestled on the outskirts of a sleepy town, harbored a dark secret. Built in the late 1800s, it had been a beacon of medical advancement. However, beneath its veneer of healthcare, something sinister lurked, known only as the Hollow. Dr. Alice Bennett, a young and idealistic doctor, joined St. Elmo's, drawn by its history and the mysterious allure of its oldest wing, long since abandoned and shrouded in rumors. The Hollow, as the staff referred to it, was a place of legend, a forgotten part of the hospital sealed off for reasons unknown. Alice's curiosity led her to explore the Hollow one fateful night. As she navigated the decrepit halls, she felt a chilling presence, as if the very walls whispered secrets of a tormented past. The further she ventured, the more intense the feeling of dread became. In the heart of the Hollow, Alice discovered a hidden underground facility, its existence wiped from all hospital records. This subterranean labyrinth was a stark contrast to the hospital above, filled with archaic medical equipment and rooms that bore the scars of horrific experiments. Among the dust-covered relics, Alice found a series of journals belonging to the hospital's founder, Dr. Jonathan St. Elmo. The journals revealed a chilling narrative. St. Elmo, obsessed with conquering death, had conducted grotesque experiments on patients, attempting to reanimate the dead. The Hollow had been his secret laboratory, where he performed unspeakable acts in his quest for immortality. But his experiments had gone horribly wrong, unleashing something unnatural. Patients and staff subjected to his trials had transformed into something less than human, their souls twisted into malevolent entities. As Alice delved deeper, she began to experience haunting visions and encounters with ghostly apparitions, echoes of the tortured souls trapped within the Hollow. The air was thick with the despair and rage of those who had suffered under St. Elmo's madness. Determined to expose the horrors, Alice gathered evidence, planning to bring it to the authorities. But the Hollow would not relinquish its secrets so easily. The spirits, bound to the site of their torment, began to manifest more violently, their anguished wails echoing through the corridors. One night, as Alice attempted to leave with her evidence, the spirits of the Hollow rose in a vengeful fury. The hospital trembled as if in the grip of an earthquake, the power flickered, plunging the building into darkness. Alice found herself trapped, pursued by the vengeful spirits and the monstrous results of St. Elmo's experiments, now roaming the halls. The hospital above, oblivious to the nightmare unfolding below, continued its nightly routine. In a final confrontation in the heart of the Hollow, Alice faced the twisted spirit of St. Elmo himself, his form a grotesque shadow of his former self. In a desperate struggle, she managed to set fire to the journals and the remnants of St. Elmo's research, hoping to end the nightmare. The fire spread rapidly, consuming the Hollow. Alice barely escaped, the screams of St. Elmo and his tormented victims echoing behind her as the flames purged the darkness. The fire led to the permanent closure and evacuation of St. Elmo's Hospital. Alice, traumatized but determined, shared her story, but few believed her. The Hollow was buried in the ashes, its secrets presumed lost. However, in the town, whispers persisted. Some claimed that the spirits of the Hollows still lingered, bound to the land where St. Elmo's once stood. And on certain nights, when the wind howled just right, the faint sounds of anguish and rage could be heard, a chilling reminder of the horrors that once dwelt beneath St. Elmo's Hospital. Now the third story. Nestled in the secluded woods of northern England, the ruins of Blackwood Sanitarium whispered of a past steeped in horror and madness. Once a sprawling estate, it had been converted into a psychiatric hospital in the early 1900s, a place where the most troubled and violent patients were sent, often never to be seen again. In 1952, Dr. Evelyn Hartley, a young psychiatrist with progressive ideas, was appointed as the head of Blackwood. Unbeknownst to her, she had stepped into a nightmare. The sanitarium was a place of darkness, where unspeakable experiments were conducted on patients in the name of science and medicine. The deeper Evelyn delved into the workings of Blackwood, the more she uncovered its sinister secrets. The patients, many of whom were not mentally ill but simply inconvenient to their families, were subjected to barbaric treatments by Dr. Alistair Blackwood, the founder and chief physician, whose obsession with understanding and controlling the human mind knew no moral bounds. Evelyn discovered a hidden wing, known among the staff as the Hollows, where the most horrific experiments took place. Here, Dr. Blackwood, driven by a twisted vision of breaking and remaking the human psyche, performed lobotomies, electroshock therapy, and drug-induced comas on unwitting patients. The Hollows was a place of screams and silence, where the walls were lined with the scratch marks of the tormented. The air was heavy with the stench of fear and despair. Patients who entered the Hollows rarely returned, and those who did were mere shells of their former selves, their eyes empty of life. Evelyn, horrified and determined to put an end to the atrocities, began to document the abuses, planning to expose Blackwood. But the sanitarium had a will of its own. Staff who questioned Blackwood's methods met with mysterious and tragic ends, their deaths ruled as accidents. As Evelyn gathered evidence, she started experiencing haunting phenomena. Ghostly apparitions of former patients appeared, their spectral forms etched with the agony of their past. Unearthly whispers filled the corridors at night, and objects moved on their own, as if the very building was alive with the suffering that had soaked into its walls. One stormy night, as Evelyn attempted to leave with her evidence, Blackwood confronted her. In a chilling revelation, he confessed that his experiments were more than scientific inquiry. They were a ritual, a means to breach the veil between life and death. Blackwood believed he could harness the energy of suffering and madness to attain immortality. In a final, desperate act, Evelyn set fire to the Hollows, hoping to destroy Blackwood and his research. The fire raged through the sanitarium, consuming everything. Blackwood perished in the flames, his screams echoing through the night. The ruins of Blackwood Sanitarium still stand, a grim reminder of its dark past. Visitors report disturbing occurrences, phantom screams, ghostly figures, and a feeling of being watched. Some say the spirit of Evelyn Hartley lingers, forever bound to the place of her tragic end, eternally guarding against the return of the horrors unleashed by Blackwood. The legacy of Blackwood Sanitarium lives on in whispered tales and uneasy dreams, a testament to the depths of human cruelty and the enduring power of the tormented souls that once dwelled within its cursed walls. Now the fourth story. In the quaint village of Ravenswood, nestled at the edge of an ancient forest, stood the imposing Wickersham Manor. The manor, with its Gothic architecture and sprawling gardens, had been the subject of local legend for centuries. It was said to be haunted by an evil spirit, a malevolent entity known as the Shadow of Wickersham. The story begins with the arrival of the Grayson family, who purchased the manor unaware of its dark history. The family, consisting of John and Sarah Grayson and their two children, Emily and Michael, were looking for a fresh start in the countryside. As they settled into the manor, strange occurrences began to unfold. Objects would move on their own, cold drafts filled the rooms, and an oppressive atmosphere hung over the house. The children, particularly Emily, spoke of seeing a shadowy figure lurking in the corridors and whispering her name in the dead of night. Unbeknownst to the Graysons, Wickersham Manor had been built upon the ruins of an ancient pagan temple, a site where rituals to a dark deity had been performed. The spirit of the deity, betrayed and angered by the desecration of its temple, had become trapped within the manor, growing in power and malice with each passing century. As the days went by, the spirit's influence grew stronger. John and Sarah began to experience terrifying nightmares, visions of the manor's twisted past, filled with rituals, sacrifices, and the anguished spirits of those who had fallen victim to the deity's wrath. Emily, sensitive and curious, became increasingly drawn to the spirit. She began to communicate with it, believing it to be a misunderstood presence. But the spirit, cunning and deceitful, sought to use Emily to free itself from the confines of the manor. One stormy night, the spirit revealed its true intentions to Emily, commanding her to complete a ritual that would release it into the world. Horrified, Emily refused, but the spirit had already grown too powerful. It possessed her, using her as a vessel to carry out its will. The manor came alive with supernatural fury, the walls bleeding shadows, as the spirit sought to break the barriers of its prison. John and Sarah, realizing the danger, fought desperately to save their daughter and end the nightmare. In a climactic confrontation in the manor's ancient cellar, where the remnants of the pagan temple lay, the Graysons faced the full wrath of the spirit. Using a combination of ancient rites and their love for Emily, they managed to exorcise the spirit, banishing it back to the shadows from which it had come. The manor fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting instantly. Emily, free from the spirit's grasp, collapsed into her parents' arms, exhausted but alive. The Graysons left Wickersham Manor, never to return. The manor was sealed off, standing as a brooding monument to the events that had transpired. In the village, it was said that on certain nights, when the storm clouds gathered over Ravenswood, the shadowy figure could be seen wandering the abandoned halls of the manor, forever bound to the site of its ancient temple, a lingering reminder of the evil that once dwelled within. Now the fifth story. In the heart of the Scottish Highlands, shrouded in mist and surrounded by ancient woods, stood Eldridge House, a Victorian mansion with a history as dark as its withered stone walls. The house, once a grand family home, had been abandoned for decades, its stories and secrets long forgotten. The tale of Eldridge House begins with the arrival of the Harrow family, who, seeking to escape the bustle of London, purchased the mansion, unaware of the sinister legacy it held. The family consisted of Charles and Eliza Harrow, along with their teenage daughter, Lily, and young son, Oliver. As they settled into their new home, the Harrows were charmed by its grandeur and the breathtaking beauty of the surrounding landscape. However, it wasn't long before the eerie atmosphere of the house began to reveal itself. Strange noises echoed through the halls at night, cold spots appeared randomly, and an unsettling feeling of being watched pervaded the air. The family's initial fascination turned to unease when Lily discovered a hidden room in the attic. Inside, she found a collection of old journals and artifacts belonging to the house's original owner, Lord Nathaniel Eldridge, a reclusive and eccentric nobleman rumored to have dabbled in the occult. As Lily delved into the journals, she uncovered a chilling narrative. Lord Eldridge, obsessed with achieving immortality, had sought the knowledge of ancient, forbidden rituals. His quest led him to a dark entity, a spirit he believed would grant him the power he sought. But the spirit, malevolent and cunning, had its own agenda. The more Lily read, the more the house seemed to awaken. The spirit, sensing the presence of the living after decades of silence, began to stir from the shadows. Unexplained phenomena escalated, objects moved on their own, shadowy figures were glimpsed in the corners of the eye, and whispers filled the night air. Charles, a rational and pragmatic man, refused to believe in the supernatural. But when Oliver suddenly felt gravely ill, his condition inexplicable and worsening by the hour, Charles was forced to confront the possibility that something beyond his understanding was at work. Eliza, desperate to save her son, turned to the journals for answers. They learned that Lord Eldridge, in his final ritual, had become bound to the house, his spirit merging with its very essence. The ritual had gone awry, trapping him in a liminal state, neither alive nor dead, his spirit twisted into something malevolent. The Harrows realized that the spirit of Lord Eldridge was feeding off their life force, growing stronger with each passing day. Oliver, being the most vulnerable, was the first to succumb to its influence. Determined to end the nightmare, the family sought the help of a local priest and a renowned psychic, both of whom had knowledge of the occult. Together, they devised a plan to sever the connection between Lord Eldridge's spirit and the house, a dangerous and complex ritual that required the family to confront the entity directly. On a stormy night, as the ritual began, the house came alive with supernatural fury. The spirit, enraged and threatened, unleashed its full power. The air crackled with dark energy, objects flew through the air, and the ghostly apparition of Lord Eldridge himself appeared, his form twisted by anger and madness. In the midst of chaos, with the psychic's guidance, the family chanted the incantations, their voices rising above the din. As the ritual reached its climax, a blinding light filled the house, and a deafening roar echoed through the halls. Then, suddenly, silence. The house, free from the spirit's grasp, felt different, lighter. Oliver's condition improved rapidly, as if he had never been ill. The Harrows left Eldridge House soon after, the mansion once again standing silent and empty, its dark legacy at an end. But in the village, it was said that on certain nights, when the mist rolled in from the highlands, the sound of whispers and the echo of a lone, anguished scream could be heard emanating from the abandoned mansion, a haunting reminder of the reckoning of Eldridge House.